Do you know why the Battle of Bosworth, fought on August 22, 1485, marked a pivotal moment in English history? Did it really bring an end to the Wars of the Roses? And what do we know about the rise of the Tudor dynasty? Today we provide a comprehensive analysis of the battle, exploring the political, military, and social context that shaped its outcome. Can you name the key figures involved? Do you know the strategies and tactics employed? Why does the battle have enduring significance in the historical landscape of medieval England? Introduction. The Battle of Bosworth is a cornerstone event in the annals of English history. It was the culmination of a protracted dynastic struggle between the houses of Lancaster and York, collectively known as the Wars of the Roses. The conflict at Bosworth not only decided the fate of these two rival houses, but also established Henry Tudor as King Henry VII, marking the beginning of the Tudor dynasty. Let us delve into the multifaceted aspects of the battle, from the intricate political machinations leading up to the confrontation to the detailed military maneuvers on the battlefield, and finally, understand the far-reaching implications of the battle's outcome. Political context. The Wars of the Roses were a series of civil wars fought over control of the English throne, primarily between the Lancastrian and Yorkist factions. The conflict originated from the complex web of claims to the throne stemming from the descendants of King Edward III. The immediate lead-up to Bosworth involved the weakening of King Richard III's position following the death of his son and heir, Edward of Middleham, in 1484. Richard's rule was further destabilized by the defection of key nobles and the public's discontent following the controversial circumstances surrounding his ascent to the throne, particularly the alleged murder of his nephews, the princes in the Tower. The Wars of the Roses, a background. The Wars of the Roses began in 1455 and spanned over 3 decades, with intermittent periods of peace. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the reign of Edward III, whose numerous sons created a complicated line of succession. The immediate cause of the wars, however, was the mental instability of King Henry VI and the ensuing power struggle between his supporters, the Lancastrians, and those of Richard, Duke of York. Henry VI's bouts of insanity and the incompetence of his reign led to the rise of powerful nobles who vied for control. Richard, Duke of York, initially positioned himself as a protector of the realm but eventually laid claim to the throne. His son, Edward IV, successfully usurped Henry VI, marking the first major triumph for the Yorkist faction. The ascendancy of Richard III. Richard III's path to the throne was fraught with controversy. As the younger brother of Edward IV, Richard was initially a loyal supporter of his brother's reign. However, upon Edward's death in 1483, Richard assumed the role of Lord Protector for his young nephews, Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury. The mysterious disappearance and presumed murder of these princes in the Tower of London cast a shadow over Richard's legitimacy. His usurpation of the throne alienated many nobles and sowed the seeds of rebellion. Richard's reign was marked by efforts to consolidate power and quell dissent. He enacted legal reforms and sought to stabilize the economy, but his rule was continually undermined by the pervasive rumors surrounding the fate of the princes in the Tower and the legitimacy of his claim to the throne. This turmoil created an opportunity for Henry Tudor, a distant claimant with Lancastrian ties, to challenge Richard's rule. Key figures. Richard III. The Yorkist king, Richard III, was a seasoned military commander with a reputation for both ruthlessness and competence. Despite his military acumen, his reign was marred by accusations of usurpation and tyranny. Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor, later Henry VII, was the Lancastrian claimant to the throne. His claim was tenuous, relying heavily on his descent from John of Gaunt through an illegitimate line. Nevertheless, his mother, Margaret Beaufort, was instrumental in garnering support for his cause. The nobility. The allegiance of the English nobility was crucial in the outcome of the battle. Key figures included Thomas, Lord Stanley, and his brother, Sir William Stanley, whose support for Henry was pivotal. Their decision to switch sides during the battle was a decisive factor in Richard's defeat. Richard III, the King in the North. Richard III was born in 1452 the youngest surviving son of Richard, Duke of York. From a young age, he was exposed to the turbulent politics of the era. Richard demonstrated loyalty and military prowess, notably at the Battle of Barnet and the Battle of Tewkesbury, which solidified his reputation as a formidable commander. His rise to power was facilitated by his older brother, Edward IV, who granted him extensive lands and titles in the north of England. Despite his accomplishments, Richard's reign was overshadowed by the events leading to his coronation. The disappearance of Edward V and his brother, the Duke of York, left an indelible stain on his legacy. Richard's efforts to legitimize his rule included public displays of piety and justice, but these were insufficient to quell the rumors and dissent. Henry Tudor, the exiled claimant. Henry Tudor's claim to the English throne was tenuous at best. Born in 1457, he spent much of his early life in exile in Brittany, following the downfall of the Lancastrian cause. His mother, Margaret Beaufort, played a crucial role in maintaining his claim and securing alliances. Henry's return to England in 1485 was orchestrated with the support of disaffected Yorkist and Lancastrian nobles, who saw in him a figure capable of uniting the factions and ending the Civil War. Henry's upbringing in exile instilled in him a cautious and pragmatic approach to politics. His claim was bolstered by his betrothal to Elizabeth of York, daughter of Edward IV, which promised to unite the warring houses. Henry's military experience was limited, but he compensated for this by surrounding himself with capable commanders and advisors. The role of the Stanley brothers. Thomas Stanley, 1st Earl of Derby, and his brother, Sir William Stanley, played pivotal roles in the outcome of the Battle of Bosworth. The Stanleys were powerful magnates with substantial influence in the northwest of England. Their support was crucial to both Richard III and Henry Tudor. Throughout the conflict, the Stanleys maintained a cautious neutrality, ultimately aligning with Henry at the decisive moment. Thomas Stanley's marriage to Margaret Beaufort, Henry's mother, further complicated his position. Despite nominally supporting Richard III, the Stanleys were instrumental in the final outcome of the battle. Their defection to Henry's side, spurred by political calculations and personal connections, was a turning point in the confrontation. Military strategies and tactics. The Battle of Bosworth was fought near the small market town of Market Bosworth in Leicestershire. The exact location of the battlefield has been a matter of historical debate, but recent archaeological findings have provided a clearer picture. Richard III's position. Richard III positioned his forces on Ambion Hill, a strong defensive location. His army was composed of experienced troops, including a significant contingent of mounted knights. Richard's strategy hinged on a swift, decisive engagement, leveraging his superior position and the loyalty of his core supporters. Henry Tudor's approach. Henry Tudor's forces were numerically inferior and less experienced. His army consisted largely of French mercenaries and Welsh supporters. Henry's strategy focused on cautious engagement, aiming to draw out Richard's forces and exploit any weaknesses. Stanley intervention. The role of the Stanley brothers was critical. Nominally aligned with Richard, they maintained a cautious neutrality until the battle's outcome seemed apparent. Their intervention on Henry's side significantly tilted the balance of power. Richard III's military disposition. Richard III's army, estimated at around 10,000 to 12,000 men, was strategically positioned on Ambion Hill. This elevated ground provided a significant tactical advantage, allowing Richard to survey the battlefield and control the engagement. His forces included a corps of heavily armored knights, archers, and infantry, organized into 3 main divisions or battles. Richard's vanguard was commanded by the Duke of Norfolk, a seasoned veteran. The main body of the army was under Richard's direct command, while the rearguard was led by the Earl of Northumberland. This arrangement was designed to maximize the effectiveness of his forces, with the cavalry poised for a decisive charge. Henry Tudor's forces. Henry Tudor's army was considerably smaller, estimated at around 5,000 men. His forces were a mix of French mercenaries, Welsh supporters, and English exiles. Henry's lack of direct military experience was offset by his reliance on experienced commanders, including the Earl of Oxford, who played a crucial role in organizing and leading the troops. Henry's strategy was cautious, reflecting his numerical inferiority and the necessity to draw Richard into a disadvantageous position. He positioned his forces in a way that minimized their exposure and maximized their defensive capabilities, awaiting the right moment to strike. The role of the Stanleys. The Stanley brothers commanded a separate force, positioned between the two main armies. Their intervention was uncertain until the final stages of the battle. Their forces, numbering around 3,000 men, were strategically placed to either support Richard or Henry, depending on the unfolding situation. The Stanleys' decision to support Henry Tudor was influenced by a combination of personal, political, and familial considerations. Their timely intervention, attacking Richard's flank, proved decisive, contributing significantly to the Yorkist defeat. The battle commenced with Richard's forces descending from Ambien Hill to engage Henry's troops. Initial skirmishes saw Richard's men gaining the upper hand. However, as the battle progressed, the tide turned. Richard, in a bold and desperate move, led a charge aimed directly at Henry Tudor, hoping to end the conflict by killing the Lancastrian leader. This audacious maneuver brought Richard perilously close to victory, but ultimately failed when the Stanleys intervened decisively. The intervention of Sir William Stanley, attacking Richard's flank, proved catastrophic for the Yorkist forces. Surrounded and outnumbered, Richard III fought valiantly but was ultimately unhorsed and killed, marking the end of the battle and his reign. His death signified the collapse of Yorkist resistance and the dawn of the Tudor era. Initial engagements. The battle began with Richard's vanguard, led by the Duke of Norfolk, advancing to engage Henry's forces. The initial clashes were fierce, with both sides suffering casualties. Norfolk's forces pushed Henry's troops back, gaining an early advantage. However, the Lancastrian forces, under the command of the Earl of Oxford, held their ground, repelling the Yorkist advance. Richard's charge. As the battle reached its climax, Richard III made a bold decision to personally lead a cavalry charge aimed at Henry Tudor. This move was intended to break the Lancastrian line and capture or kill Henry, thereby ending the battle swiftly. Richard's charge was a high-risk maneuver, reflecting his desperation and determination to secure victory. Richard's personal bravery was evident as he fought his way through the Lancastrian ranks, coming within striking distance of Henry. However, the intervention of the Stanley forces at this critical juncture turned the tide. Sir William Stanley's attack on Richard's flank disrupted the Yorkist charge, leading to chaos and disarray. The death of Richard III. Richard III's death marked the turning point of the battle. Unhorsed and surrounded, he fought valiantly until he was overwhelmed and killed. His death on the battlefield symbolized the end of the Yorkist cause and the triumph of Henry Tudor. The exact circumstances of Richard's death have been the subject of historical debate, but contemporary accounts emphasize his bravery and the brutal nature of the conflict. The death of Richard III was not only a personal tragedy for the king, but also a symbolic moment that marked the end of an era. His body was later taken to Leicester and hastily buried in a humble grave, reflecting the ignominy of his defeat. The discovery of Richard's remains in 2012 provided new insights into the injuries he sustained in his final moments, offering a poignant reminder of the brutality of medieval warfare. Aftermath and significance. The aftermath of the Battle of Bosworth had profound implications for England. Henry Tudor's victory established him as Henry VII, the first Tudor king. He solidified his claim through marriage to Elizabeth of York, thereby uniting the warring houses and ending the dynastic conflict. The battle also marked the decline of the feudal system and the rise of a more centralized monarchical power, laying the groundwork for the modern British state. Political stability. Henry VII's reign focused on consolidating power, reducing the influence of the nobility, and strengthening the financial foundations of the monarchy. His establishment of the Court of Star Chamber and other administrative reforms curtailed the power of rebellious nobles and reinforced royal authority. By promoting loyal supporters and creating a network of spies and informers, Henry ensured the stability of his reign. Economic and social reforms. Henry VII's economic policies were aimed at rebuilding the royal finances, which had been depleted by years of civil war. He implemented measures to promote trade and commerce, including treaties with foreign powers and the establishment of a more efficient tax system. These reforms helped to stabilize the economy and lay the foundations for future prosperity. Socially, Henry sought to reduce the power of the overmighty subjects by restricting the practice of retaining private armies. This policy helped to curb the influence of the nobility and promote greater centralization of power. Cultural impact. The Battle of Bosworth has been immortalized in literature and popular culture, most notably in William Shakespeare's play Richard III. The portrayal of Richard as a villainous usurper has influenced public perception for centuries, despite ongoing historical reassessment. The battle's legacy has also been commemorated in various historical novels, films, and television series, highlighting its enduring fascination. Historical reassessment. Modern historians have re-evaluated the legacy of Richard III, challenging the Tudor propaganda that painted him as a malevolent tyrant. Archaeological discoveries, such as the finding of Richard's remains in 2012, have sparked renewed interest and debate about his life and reign. These findings have provided new insights into Richard's physical appearance, health, and the circumstances of his death, prompting a more nuanced understanding of his character and reign. The reassessment of Richard III's legacy has been fueled by a combination of historical research, archaeological evidence, and public interest. The discovery of his remains in Leicester and subsequent reburial in 2015 provided a focal point for renewed interest and debate. This reassessment has led to a more balanced view of Richard, recognizing his administrative and military skills while acknowledging the controversies that marred his reign. Conclusion. The Battle of Bosworth stands as a defining moment in English history, encapsulating the end of medieval dynastic warfare and the beginning of a new era under the Tudor dynasty. The battle's outcome was shaped by a complex interplay of political intrigue, military strategy, and personal ambition. Its legacy continues to resonate, offering rich insights into the nature of power, legitimacy, and historical memory. Through detailed analysis, we gain a deeper understanding of this pivotal event and its enduring impact on the course of English history. The significance of the Battle of Bosworth extends beyond the immediate political and military outcomes. It represents a transformative moment that reshaped the political landscape of England, paving the way for the centralization of power and the development of a more modern state. The legacy of Bosworth continues to be felt in the ongoing debates about monarchy, legitimacy, and the nature of historical memory. Through this detailed analysis, we have explored the multifaceted dimensions of the Battle of Bosworth, from the intricate political context to the dramatic events on the battlefield and the far-reaching consequences of the battle's outcome. This comprehensive examination provides a deeper understanding of this pivotal event and its enduring impact on English history. Before we wrap up, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel in order to explore more about medieval history. Check out our other videos on the channel or share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Thanks for joining us on this journey through time. Stay curious and keep exploring.